Hey, listen up, landlords and renters. A tenant cannot unreasonably withhold consent. If a landlord wants to show a property to a potential buyer or a renter, they have to. But unreasonable is a clear-cut definition. Your face is unreasonable. Sir, go sit with the other ones over there. I'm sitting over here because I want to sit over here. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Hey, can you guys keep down? I'm on a phone call over here. What's up, rock stars? I'm Mighty Mike, and a very frequent question that's always on the minds of all prospective landlords and tenants involves the landlord's ability to show the property to new buyers and new renters while a tenant currently lives in that property. And just like most things in life, the issue is evenly split down the middle amongst landlords who wish to do this and tenants who do not want this to happen. So landlords, what to do? Let's take a look at each side's position. All right, so what if you're a landlord? Oftentimes, the owner ends up renting a property out, but they still continue to list the property for sale. This is what we like to call in the business a very confused person. While there is no law that requires a landlord to inform a tenant of his intent to sell and to rent out the property at the same time, I, as a property manager, always recommend to my landlords, let potential tenants know of your plans. You're gonna start to see a very common theme in life. Communication is the solution and the cause of all of life's problems. Or more often than not, a lack of communication between two parties regarding things like this ultimately leads to unnecessary disputes, time, and money being wasted. So how do you avoid these issues altogether? Well, whether you're an agent representing a seller who decides to rent and sell at the same time, or you're a landlord considering selling the property that's tenant occupied, you should consider these important points. Do you, the owner, want to continue to actively find a buyer even though the property is already rented out? If so, a buyer would be purchasing a property subject to the existing lease terms. And pending any language in the lease requiring the tenant to leave, this could limit the potential pool of buyers if they have to take on the role of landlord. So make sure you keep that in mind. Point two, if the property is tenant occupied, how is your relationship with the current tenant? If the answer is in the vicinity of not so great, oh no, yeah, he's a fantastic tenant. Oh! Hey, you better patch up those bullet holes. I'm not giving you a deposit back. Those could be huge red flags in terms of your ability to sell the home. You know, essentially setting up the showing, taking photos for the property for a listing, going on the MLS, using a lockbox, etc. All these things are gonna be impacted by this. Point three, if the tenant refuses to allow any showings whatsoever, what is a landlord's options? If the tenant refuses to cooperate, a landlord may take legal action. But you have to really ask yourself, what is the cash flow in this property? Is it really worth getting lawyers involved in the situation? Probably not. All right, so what if you're a tenant? What are your options? Well, I can certainly understand the tenant's hesitancy or even annoyance at a landlord's request to show the property while they're currently living in it. The fact of the matter is that under Florida law, a tenant cannot unreasonably withhold consent to a landlord that wants to show the property to prospective or actual buyers or renters. All right, huge disclaimer here. Make sure that you review your local laws. Every state, county, city is going to be completely different, so make sure you're following those guidelines. This is based off of Florida law. So if you're a tenant, you're looking to rent a property, you can always ask the landlord or the landlord's agent about what the landlord's intent is to do. Are they planning on selling the property? Remember, the standard is reasonableness. But what does that even mean? All right, so let's say that the listing agent or the owner calls you the tenant, on a Friday morning to say that a potential buyer wants to come by and see the property on Saturday. All right, you being the tenant, however, maybe you have something going on Saturday. Maybe you have a birthday party that you're throwing for one of your kids, and it's not gonna be really convenient for you to accommodate the showing. More than likely, this would be a reasonable justification for any tenant to say no to the showing. But if you change those circumstances just a little bit, you can end up with a completely different scenario. So let's use the same example. But this time the tenant, you flat out refuse to allow the showing whatsoever. Or you essentially, every time they want to come by and show the property, you always deny the showing. You say, I don't intend on allowing any showings whatsoever to the property. This would be considered unreasonable. Hello? Oh yeah, you know what's a better time? So my schedule is free on September 3rd 2022. That's probably a good time to go ahead and show the property. If the tenants do unreasonably withhold consent to allow the landlord to show the property to prospective buyers or renters, what option does the landlord have? All right, one of the steps that you could take is to send out a 7-day notice of non-compliance. This is a statutory notice, and it should point out that the tenant is not complying with the law and is refusing to allow showings at all. The notice states that in the event that a tenant does not reply or remedy the issue within 7 days, the lease can be terminated and the tenants will have to be evicted or have to leave the property on their own. Of course, the landlord could always do nothing and simply just wait for the lease to end and the tenant to vacate the property before selling the property. I typically recommend that most landlords, they take this course for good reasons. One, you eliminate this headache altogether. And two, it allows you to get in there to make necessary repairs and any upgrades going forward without any issues or complaints or hassles dealing with someone currently living in the property. But Mike, what if I have to sell now? What are my options? I don't have several months to wait until the landlord or until the tenant moves out and I can get in there and do those things. What can I do? Again, this is why asking questions in advance can make these things a whole lot easier. Communication is always going to be key here. Now, wait a minute, I'm a landlord. This is my property. I own this. I can go in there anytime I want. And that may be true. Make sure you check your local laws. But here in the state of Florida, you can go in there. You're supposed to give reasonable notice, but it's your property. You can do what you want. But I would err on the side of caution and say that, based off of general safety protocols and principles, and to eliminate any potential conflicts, I don't recommend that any landlord do this whatsoever. All right, so what are the potential solutions to this problem? Well, if you're a landlord, be upfront. Tell people about what your tenant use is for the property. Do you plan on keeping the property for a while, generating, money? You don't have to get into the details, but if you do plan on selling the property in the future, when do you plan on doing that? This, being upfront and communicating with your potential tenants can help guide you to find the right tenant for your property. Now, if you're a renter and you're looking to become a tenant at a property, same goes for you guys. Discussing landlord's expectation can assist you in asking the right questions and finding the perfect property for yourself to rent. And then lastly, while no one wants to turn down any potential business or a sweet pad to rent, asking questions and having open conversations with your tenants and your landlords can alleviate potential issues in the future. We know, a lot of you guys who've been through this experience before know how time-consuming dealing with landlord-tenant disputes can be. So make sure you always ask and always disclose. So what do you guys think? Have you guys experienced any of these issues before? And what were the outcomes? Go ahead and leave your comments down below and share your stories with us. And remember, if you're in the Central Florida area and you're looking to buy the home of your dreams or you're looking to sell your current one, let the Rockstar team get you home.